And she is, of course, the spouse of Arthur. So, very, very important. She is his physical symbol of the goddess of sovereignty. It's how he gets his rule of the land, really, is his marriage to Guinevere. It's what secures his rule of the land, as marriages did tend to do. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that part about the Vulgate, post Vulgate cycles. The alliterative and prose Morte d'Arthurs are, again, these medieval, they slightly newer than the Vulgate and post Vulgate cycles. And they are two traditions that tell the story of Arthur and Camelot and everything. And yes, you have the stories of, evil Morgan and everything. And the only reason I'm mentioning those, though, is to say that Sir Thomas Malory, who was the knight that back in the Wars of the Roses period, who was imprisoned in the Tower of London and spent his time researching the Arthurian legends and writing his magnum opus, Le Morte d'Arthur. That is the most seminal work of all of Arthurian literature. It is what pretty much everything after it was based upon to some extent. It was Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur that inspired T.H. White's Once and Future King, that inspired just the Idylls of the King by Tennyson. It is the gold standard of Arthurian literature. I'm just going to flat out say it that way. And it is still pretty much the gold standard to this day. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, Malory was writing, like I said, at the end of the Wars of the Roses period. It was first published in its completion in 1485. It actually, there were two different publishers, and there's this whole history. If you're interested in the history of publishing and the drama surrounding this book, you can look it up. There's just so much. I'm not going to get into it. However, Sir Thomas Malory was inspired by the Vulgate, the post-Vulgate, and the alliterative and prose Morte d'Arthurs, as well as probably Chrétien de Troyes and Monmouth. He probably drew on them as well. But the closer to his lifetime would have been the Vulgate, post-Vulgate, and the Morte d'Arthur alliterative and prose versions. And, of course, he took his title from that. He did the full Le Morte d'Arthur, and it was, like I said, it was a massive success. It was a huge bestseller. And he's the one that really solidified Morgana in her place as evil enchantress. He describes her pretty much only as such. He does the whole pantheon of her tales of treachery, so to speak. He does the affairs. In fact, that really, one of the greatest Arthurian hypocrisy tales where Guinevere breaks up Morgana's affair with her nephew Guiomar because Morgana's married, and how dare she? Morgana's in an unhappy marriage that she didn't choose, that her husband forced her to take. And yeah, she has a son. She did what she's supposed to do. Let her have her fun, people. She didn't want to marry King Urian. Just go with it. But I digress. This is what is said to have really made Morgana hate Guinevere so much, is that she broke up a love match for her. Even if it was one that couldn't lead to marriage, she still loved Guiomar. She wanted to be with him, and Guinevere prevented it. Yeah, I know, bitchy move. So, then we have all of her tales of what she did. Like, she's another lover named Accolon, and no matter what, even though Arthur always trusted her, she always hated him. And in this version, before I get to the Accolon part, in this version she hates him because she is the daughter of Igraine, his mother, and Gorlois, Igraine's first husband, the Duke of Cornwall. And it was Uther, Arthur's father's fault that her father died. He started a war over being in love with Igraine and obsessed with her and wanting to bed her and not being able to. Then he left the battlefield, and Gorlois gets killed by Uther's men. And he goes off with Merlin and has Merlin transfigure him with a fairy glamour to make him look like Gorlois. He gets into Tintagel Castle in Cornwall, and he beds Igraine, begetting upon her Arthur. Of course, Igraine then finds out her husband's actually dead, finds out who she slept with, and she's forced to marry Uther because, well, she doesn't have a better choice, first of all. It's the medieval period. What the fuck is she supposed to do? Oops, sorry about that. She has nothing that she could do other than marry this man who has been really treacherous, honestly. And then he marries off two of her daughters immediately, and then Morgan is both married off to a person she doesn't want to be married to and sent off to a nunnery. But at that nunnery, she learns the dark arts and she learns necromancy, and she becomes a very powerful magical woman. Anyway, she comes back to Camelot during the reign of her brother Arthur, and Arthur trusts her implicitly. She's a sister, and that she's the one he's close to. His other sisters he's not. They live at their own palaces with their own husbands. But Morgan's right there, and she wants to be there. She wants revenge. So when he gets Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake, yes, Excalibur and the Sword and the Stone are different. He gets Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. I could do a whole video on the swords of Arthuriana if anyone's interested. But he gets Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. And he gives Excalibur to Morgan for safekeeping. Yeah, he wants her to keep it safe. I know, ironic. Well, what she does is she duplicates the sword using magic, and she duplicates, more importantly, the scabbard of the sword. Because the scabbard is more powerful than the sword itself. Merlin had already explained this to Arthur. The scabbard of Excalibur prevents the holder of it from being injured or killed in battle. So that's great. You know, you don't even have to be a very good fighter. You're still going to one-up people. Well, what Morgan then does is she gives the actual Excalibur and the actual scabbard to her lover, Sir Accolon, one of Arthur's knights. And she devises a plan for them to compete in battle. And during this time in battle, Arthur and Accolon do not know who each other is when they're fighting in single combat. Arthur thinks he has Excalibur, but he's getting injured. And this other person's one-upping him, and he's wondering what's going on. Then he notices the sword and the scabbard this other person is using is identical to Excalibur. He realizes what actually happens. So he manages to wrest Excalibur and the sword from Accolon, and he kills Accolon, of course. This is the thing that really sets Morgan off. Yeah, I believe it was after that she tries to kill her husband, is stopped by her son, Owain, or we would say Owen today, but it's Owain is her son's name. He's also a Knight of the Round Table at that point, and he prevents her from murdering her husband and his father, obviously. And then she goes off to her own palace, and, you know, there's this whole story of her trying to get with Lancelot, but he's obsessed with Guinevere, and it's Morgan who reveals them to Arthur. I believe it was Morgan in that version. There's certainly a version where Morgan reveals to Arthur by she held Lancelot captive in her castle, and he painted the walls with these murals, and there were murals of him and Guinevere in very, very states of undress, let's say it that way. So Arthur knows full well that, oh my gosh, my best knight, the person I consider my best friend, I consider like a brother, has been betting my wife. So yeah, Morgan does in that way help to cause the downfall of Camelot. But Mallory keeps what is kept throughout all of the tradition, which is Morgan at the end redeems herself in a way. It's Morgan that is on that barge with two other queenly figures, two other fairy queens, to collect the dying Arthur after his final battle of Camlan. She comes, she collects him, and she takes him to Avalon to heal him. That stays consistent. So even though she's done all this bad stuff, even though she wanted him dead, she's also the one to come collect him to try and heal his wounds. It's quite interesting, actually. That brief period of redemption, that little tiny goodness at the end. And I think that all of that just says she's a complex figure. And frankly, I first met Morgana as the bad girl figure, and I love her for it. I love that she's a badass. I love that she's willing to take what she wants, and she's willing to do what she has to do. In the modern age, luckily, women don't have to go to the extreme she had to go to. We don't have to try and murder people, but she puts her foot down and she says, no, this is not right. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to work for. That's why she's considered to be aligned with change, with transformation, and with accepting your own personal sovereignty, which is something that all of us should work towards. So I find her a very inspirational figure, even in her most evil guises. And like I said, I am really happy to have been able to do this video for everyone today to give you the backstory of the great Morgana le Fay. And once again, my name is Miranda. I am a writer and I run the blog whiteroseofavalon.life. I would love for anyone to click on over. It should be in my information, my About Me page here on the channel. And it is whiteroseofavalon.life if you want to just type it into your browser. And I write about all sorts of things, of the magical, the mystical, and certainly a lot about the fairies of Arthuriana. So I hope you've enjoyed. You could also follow me on Twitter at Avalon Enchant. I have a Twitch channel as well, also Avalon Enchant on twitch.tv. And I usually stream on Mondays and Fridays. I just started. Last week I did Monday and Friday. I think I'm going to be consistent with that. Mondays, it's either going to be in the afternoon around 1 o'clock or it will be in the evening. On Fridays, it's going to be about 8 o'clock at night after, work and everything. So I really hope that you will join me on my live streams on Twitch TV, and especially I hope you'll go to my blog, read some of my writings, because I'm very passionate about everything I've talked about today, and I love sharing my passion with other people. So thank you so much for watching. If you like what I've done here today, please click that subscribe button. I hope you have an amazing week. I will see you back here next Sunday. And I am, again, Miranda, the Enchantress of Avalon. Thanks for watching.